Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the SLIAC All-Decade Team. Today, we're going to tee it up and talk some men's golf with Terry Lowe. Terry, how are you doing?
Doing really well.
Good to hear. Well, when we look at the men's golf back in the 90s, one of the coaches I wanted to ask you about, we talked about him a little bit earlier about men's basketball, but is from Fontbonne, Lee Mckinney. What can you tell us about Lee?
Well, Lee had one of the premier teams in golf as well as men's basketball. Fontbonne won a couple of titles in the 90s, was joined by Principia and MacMurray, who won a couple of titles each.
That's right. When you're looking at the men's golf, as you mentioned, with a couple titles from the teams, there's a couple players that really stood out. In particular, Principia's Justin McKinney. What can you tell us about Justin?
Well, Justin was a three-time Player of the Year and a four-time All-Conference performer. Being Player of the Year, quite honestly, that speaks for itself. That means you won the conference championship.
Yeah, to do it three times, that's an impressive feat. There's another name that we had mentioned earlier in one of our interviews, Keith Quigley from Fontbonne, but this time he's as a player. Tell us about Keith.
Well, Keith, he was a two-time Player of the Year in 91 and 93. He was a four-time All-Conference performer. And little factoid here, he was the first individual NCAA qualifier in the conference in 93.
That is always a memorable feat. I'm sure he still cherishes that today. Who are some other individual players that kind of stood out to you as you look down this list?
Well, I gotta mention Coach Bob Fry at MacMurray, a two-time Coach of the Year, guided his team to a couple of championships. He had Brian Baptist was the Player of the Year in 97 from MacMurray. We had Jason Ackerman from Blackburn, Newcomer of the Year in 96. He was a four-time All-Conference performer. And we had Torrey Welch, Player of the Year in 99, Newcomer of the Year in 99 from Maryville. He was a four-time All-Conference performer. Just a little note on Keith Quigley. He is in the Hall of Fame as a coach, and we'd be remiss if we don't mention to get into the Hall of Fame, which is a relatively recent award. You had to have done something either in your playing or coaching careers a few years ago to be honored.
That's right, and he certainly accomplished that. I want to take a quick side note. We talked about him earlier, Lee Mckinney. We talked about him men's basketball. Just a quick side note. Can you tell everyone who may not have had the chance to meet Lee Mckinney what type of person he was and how important he really was for not just Fontbonne, but for the conference as a whole?
Well, when the conference was first started in the early 90s, Lee was a driving force, and because Fontbonne was one of those first schools, and Lee was very active in all of his coaching organizations, and he was active on the national scene. He actually got on the nominating committee for the NCAA in Division III, and he was integral in getting me on the budget committee. And I have to tell you, I had a great time. That was fun learning about the finances of the NCAA and how much the different respective divisions, what slice of the pie they get.
That's right. Yep. Well, Terry, I want to thank you again for talking to us today, and we look forward to speaking with you again about more spring sports.
Looking forward to it.